Have you ever seen a job posting for a logistics manager right next to one for a supply chain manager and wondered if they're actually the same job with two different names? You're not alone. Even people working inside warehouses and freight companies mix these two terms up constantly. And honestly, getting this wrong isn't just a vocabulary mistake. Companies lose money when they confuse the two because they end up hiring the wrong role for the wrong problem. So today I'm going to give you the real answer, the history behind both words, and a few examples that will make this click for good. Here's the short version, right up front. Supply chain management is the big picture. It's every step that gets a product from raw material all the way to your front door, across every company involved along the way. Logistics is one piece inside that big picture. Specifically, it's the part that deals with physically moving, storing, and tracking goods. So logistics is not a separate thing from supply chain management. Logistics lives inside supply chain management as one of its most important parts. Think of supply chain management as the entire orchestra, and logistics as one section of that orchestra, the one responsible for actually getting the instruments to the stage on time. Let's break down what each word covers in practice. Supply chain management includes sourcing raw materials, choosing which suppliers to work with, planning production schedules, deciding where to build factories and warehouses, and managing relationships with every company that touches the product before it reaches you. It is a strategic function. The people making these decisions are thinking months or years ahead. Logistics, on the other hand, covers transportation, so which trucks, ships, or planes move the product. It covers warehousing, meaning where goods sit and how they're organized while waiting. It covers inventory management, tracking exactly how much stock exists and where. And it covers the process of getting a product back if a customer returns it, which is called reverse logistics. Logistics people are thinking about today and this week. Which truck leaves at 9? Is the warehouse fully staffed for tomorrow's shipment? Now here's something most people don't know, and it's genuinely interesting. These two words are not from the same era at all. Logistics is old, really old. The word traces back to the French term logistique, which first appeared in print in 1838 in a book called The Art of War, written by a Swiss military general named Baron Henri de Jomini. But the practice of logistics goes back even further than that. Historians often point to Alexander the Great, who was born in 356 BC as one of history's great logistics masters, because moving and feeding an army across thousands of miles of unfamiliar territory is, at its core, a logistics problem. Armies that could not feed themselves or move their equipment simply lost wars, no matter how skilled their soldiers were. The English word logistics shows up in writing by around 1898, borrowed almost entirely from military planning. Supply chain management is a completely different story. It's a modern business term, and we actually know almost exactly when it was born. Most historians credit a consultant named Keith Oliver, who worked at the consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton, with coining the phrase in 1982 in an interview with the Financial Times. That's it, 1982. Compare that to logistics, which was already an established military concept over 100 years earlier, and arguably a real-world practice for thousands of years before that. So why did supply chain management need to be invented as a new term in the 1980s? Because global manufacturing was exploding. Companies were no longer making everything in-house. They were sourcing parts from one country, assembling in another, and selling worldwide. Somebody needed a word for coordinating all of that across company borders, not just moving boxes inside one warehouse. That word became supply chain management. So why do people still mix these words up today? Mostly because at a small company, one person often does both jobs. If you run a small online store, you are the one deciding which supplier to use and the one figuring out which shipping carrier to book. There's no separation, so the words blur together naturally, but at a massive company, the split becomes very real. Take a company like Amazon. Their supply chain management team makes decisions like where to build the next fulfillment center and which suppliers get long-term contracts. Their logistics operation is a separate machine entirely, responsible for literally routing millions of individual packages every single day, choosing delivery trucks and running the warehouses. One team plans years ahead. The other team solves today's problem every single day, thousands of times. Here's one more detail that trips people up, and it's a great real-world test of everything we just covered. You've probably heard the term third-party logistics, often shortened to 3PL. These are companies that other businesses hire specifically to handle transportation and warehousing. Notice the name. It says logistics, not supply chain. That's not an accident. A 3PL company generally does not make your strategic sourcing decisions or design your supply network. It executes the physical movement piece. If a company instead takes over your entire strategic planning, sourcing, and network design, that's a much bigger relationship, and it goes by a different name entirely, a fourth-party logistics provider or 4PL. The naming itself proves the distinction we've been talking about this whole video. Let's talk about why this distinction is worth caring about, beyond just winning an argument at a dinner party. According to the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, in their most recent annual report, United States business logistics costs hit $2.6 trillion in a single year. That is roughly 8.7% of the entire country's GDP. Before the pandemic, that number usually sat closer to 7.5%. So logistics alone, just the physical moving and storing part, is eating up a bigger and bigger slice of the economy every year. Now imagine zooming out to the full supply chain, sourcing, manufacturing, distribution, and everything in between, across every industry, worldwide. That is a genuinely massive part of how the modern economy actually functions, and it's why companies hire separate teams with separate budgets for these two different jobs. So let's bring it all together. Supply chain management is the strategic big picture coordination of getting a product from raw material to customer across every company involved, and it's a term that's only a few decades old. Logistics is the operational, physical piece of moving, storing, and tracking goods, and it's a concept with roots going back to ancient armies and a name that's well over a century old in English. Logistics lives inside supply chain management. It is not a competing term, it's one essential piece of a much bigger machine. Next time you see those two job titles side by side, you'll know exactly what separates them. If you learned something from this, let me know in the comments what industry you work in, and whether your job leans more toward the strategic side or the operational side. See you in the next one.